Hi everyone, this is Eric, and welcome to another episode of Oh, Go On Then, here amongst friends. Today I talk with Jose, and he is a psychologist trained in Jungian theory. He works with couples, he works with individuals, and he's a meditation teacher, and he runs workshops on archetypes, storytelling, and myth, amongst a million other things, honestly. We talk about one word to describe himself that used to be used in a negative way, that is intense, and he discusses how he has reclaimed that word and used it in a positive way, and that if he took that intensity out of him, it would just be a catastrophe. So what is the process of reclaiming words and reclaiming identities? One thing is that he says he's a walking contradiction. From being a meditation teacher to being intense, there are so many different parts of life that we're all walking contradictions, and that's much more natural and normal to accept. We discuss the shadow side of life. As he's trained in Jungian theory, he talks about that the shadow is what we learn through shame, and that we meet our shadow side through projecting people we idealize and things we demonize, and that's how we meet our shadow. It's really fascinating. When it comes to cheating in a relationship, he's a couples therapist, so he talks about different people that he's worked with, and he says that partners need to discuss what constitutes betrayal, infidelity, and defining what is valid and what is not valid in a relationship. He gives me an easy question at the end. What makes me feel hateful towards something? It makes me actually feel quite vulnerable to talk about things that make me annoyed. I don't think that I hate. I don't know. Maybe I do hate things. Anyway, take some notes. I learned a lot, and I think that you will too. Let's begin. Hi everybody, this is Eric, and welcome to another episode of Oh, Go On Then, You're Amongst Friends. And I'm here with my friend, Jose Luis Leal. And I'm very happy that you're here with me. How are you?
Hi Eric, I'm great. Very happy that you invited me, and excited. Feels like like having a conversation like 4 years ago where we studied together. So yeah.
I know. And you're in Mexico. How are things in Mexico at the moment?
Well, insane with COVID. So yeah, cases are spiking. Everyone is trying to stay inside, but some people don't, and just the usual craziness of a global pandemic. And well, I live in Monterrey. It's a big city, so there's a lot of people here, and yeah, so just a big city trying to cope with this.
Yeah, I mean, I live out in the countryside, so I just went for a walk in the woods today and didn't see anybody, and it was
That's
so
wonderful.
nice.
Yeah, no, I can't look outside my house and not see anybody. That would never happen.
Okay, well, I think we should start.
Yes.
Again, there's 15 questions, and as always, the last question is for me, so you're welcome to ask.
Yeah.
Number 16 is for me. So let's start with the first.
Mhm.
It is red or blue?
Oh, probably has a different meaning if you're not American, but definitely blue. I think red.
Really?
Yeah, red is, in my taste, a bit intense to the eyes, and I like the calmness of blue and the depth of blue. And one of my favorite things in the world is the ocean, and so blue always brings me to feeling connected to the ocean.
When did you realize that you were really connected to the ocean when you were
Probably,
a kid?
yeah, probably since I was like 5 or 6. I remember having one of my first memories is jumping waves in South Padre Island in Texas, because I would go every summer there because it's just a 4-hour drive from Monterrey. So my family used to vacation there every single summer and Easter holiday. So I would go at least 2 times a year. And one of my first memories is just being held by my hand, I think by my mother, and then just jumping the waves. And so yeah, I've loved the ocean. I think that's the ocean that I've spent the most time in, because I used to go that much, and I just love to plunge into the ocean and stay there for like 3 or 4 hours, and then resurface and just join humanity. But sadly, I have to come back. But yeah, I just love being in the ocean.
That sounds wonderful. I love how much it connects you to this overall like peaceful ocean globally,
Yes.
you know?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. Second question, do you fold or scrunch your toilet paper?
Do I fold? I fold.
Do you?
Yes.
Do you think that folding and scrunching tells us something about the person?
Yes, I think scrunching is just. I don't want to judge anyone, but let's just say I would never do that. And yeah, so I'll leave that there because I don't want to make anyone uncomfortable in their private way of taking care of their bottoms.
Next question. Now here you can take it in whatever direction you'd like. Big spoon or little spoon?
Okay. Uh, big spoon for cuddling and just, yeah, of course, in that sense, in that way, for cuddling, I prefer being a big spoon, definitely. And for eating, either a big or a little spoon, I think a little spoon. No, a big one, because it's just annoying to have so little amount of food in your spoon. So yeah, I hate that. The practicality of the big spoon is great. So if I analyze both things, it's just about feeling in control and feeling that you just, are there and you're the one holding everything and you have control of the pace and position and everything. I hate that I'm analyzing my answer, but but I'm a therapist. What am I supposed to do about it? So yeah, a big spoon, both in bed cuddling scenarios and eating.
This tells me so much about you, like the sense of like, one, analyzing yourself, but two, the overall control of the situation, the being hungry with a big spoon. Anyway, fascinating. Question number 4. You'd mentioned this a little bit earlier, but what is your first happy memory as a child?
I think that one about the ocean, also playing in the street where I grew up in. It was a street with a lot of kids, and there was a time where you can just be outside all the time and just play with everyone. And there were a lot of kids my age or related to me, and it was a happy moment. And I think a lot of flashbacks from that. Definitely the ocean, and let me try to. Yeah, I think those would be. Oh, and the question was one of my happiest memories, first or early happy memories.
Sure, yeah.
Sure, okay, because I don't think it's one of the first, but it's one of the happiest from childhood, and I just popped into my mind. But I think I was 6 or something like that, and I remember I was in my aunt's house. She lived next to us. Well, my uncle and aunt, they lived next to us with my cousins too. And I was there, and my cousin was watching something on Fox Kids, and then out of nowhere, X-Men started, the animated series, and I remember I had never seen that, and I remember the first scene that I saw, which was Storm and Rogue battling the Sentinels, and I just remember being like, what is this? It's just like the birth of a planet within me because of watching that, and of course I became a huge X-Men fan after that. But I bought the action figures, both Storm and Rogue. Well, my parents bought them for me, of course. But yeah, that was one of the, I think, happiest, most intense memories that I have, along with the ocean and just playing in the street.
What was the intensity of watching them fight?
They were flying. Rogue was taking out some electric stairs from the mall and throwing them at a sentinel. Storm created a storm with her hands and threw that at a sentinel, and they died. And I was like, what is this? I want to be able to do that, and I want to meet these people. Can they adopt me, please? So yeah, it was like, what is this?
My goodness. I guess it must have. How did you? It sounds like you were also encountering your own humanity and your own mortality and your own lack of supernatural abilities.
Yes. I was like, why can't I do that? This sucks. I want to be as powerful as them. So yeah, probably that and the ocean.
Yeah. Were you close with your mom when it sounds like with you holding her hand in the ocean?
Yeah. I was close to her. Yes, she took us to a lot of different places. She was always a very present mother, and then she tried to also just make us have fun. And she was also a tough mom, but I appreciate that
Yeah.
now a lot. Yeah. Discipline wise, she was like, she wouldn't take any nonsense ever. So yeah.
So she's kind of like you.
Yes,
You
but
don't take
but I was a 3-year-old, or 5 or whatever age I was at the moment. But she would never take crap or nonsense from us or from anyone, but particularly from us. It was like, oh God, no! If I do this and she gets angry, then it's off. She wouldn't, she wouldn't have a fit or anything. She was just like, oh, okay, so you're using your crayon to write on the wall. You're never going to use a crayon again until you learn how to behave yourself. And now you can clean the wall. And of course, she would take the crayons away. Or, I'm not going to eat, I just want candy. Sure, she would bring a plate with just candy in it and go like, you can have that, but you're going to be ill. And I'm not going to take you to the doctor because you're deciding not to take good care of yourself. So that's your responsibility. And so go ahead, please, eat all of the candies. I was like, I don't want candy anymore. Good. Are you gonna eat 3 times a day? Yes, Mom. Okay, good.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Next question. I'm looking forward to this question.
Yeah.
Does the universe know you exist, and what does it think about you?
If the universe is an omnipotent, all-knowing being, yes, the universe knows I exist. It, he or she, whatever the universe is, or its totality, yes, created me. And what would the universe say about me or think about me? So what does it say about me? That's a question?
Yeah.
I guess it would be, I don't know, something along the lines of, okay, here he goes again, or something like that, or yeah.
When did you get the sensation or the knowledge that the universe did know that you existed, that there might be like this omnipotent sense?
Well, I grew up Catholic, but I hated religion, so I left it around 14 or 15. Mentally, of course, because I couldn't stop going to church because it took me. But I had this horrible experience with a priest. I was in the confession, and he started being all judgmental, and I said, like, what's wrong with you? You can't judge me like that. And he said, yes, I can. It's my divine right to judge you however the hell I want. And I said, no, it isn't. You should go back to your theology classes. And you're basically an asshole. So I left. And he followed me, yelling that I would burn in hell. And I turned around and said, yeah, right next to you. And I never went back to confession again. This was inside a church. I think I was like 14 or 15. What can you do at 14 for a priest to be that much of a... Anyways. So before that, I don't think I felt it that much. But then I think through meditation, I started meditating very young. So I think through meditation and just this feeling of oneness and that you are, feeling connected to everything. Actually, I'm getting a memory. It was also in South Padre Island. It was a very warm summer night, and I was in the tennis courts in the hotel, and I was just there with some friends. And then I looked up the sky, and it was just full stars, and it was a little bit dark, so you could see the stars very well. And I had a sense of the stars and knowing I existed, and I knowing something existed somewhere that I just couldn't put my finger on, but that something existed. So it was there too, and just looking at the stars and that emptiness and darkness and stillness and silence and warmth and all of that together.
Wow, that must have felt. How did that feel in your body?
It was great. Sort of like expansive and sort of like almost being able to touch the star or something like that. So it was just lots of tingling, this sort of certainty of, okay, everything is connected. And in the most spiritual side, sure, I'm connected to something greater. But even if I would have taken it to a more scientific side, it would be like, yes, my atoms and my cells and all of that come from and are connected to everything, even the stars. So it was this feeling of oneness, wherever you would see it, or wherever I would see it at that moment. It was just this feeling of oneness and just being connected, being a part of things that are so big you can't measure, describe, or understand them, but yet being a part of that.
That's profound. It's, yeah, and it's interesting to kind of move from the mythical stories of different religions and things to then this sense of oneness that is very like corporal and spatial, that a lot of times the myths can't touch, or the stories and the religions can't touch, is that the sense of oneness, the sense of spatial recognition of oneness.
And I think also the sense that something from that source lives within you and you have access to it via this oneness and this expansion.
Have you kind of, with meditation, with your mindfulness and your stuff, have you been able to kind of like reach that space again and kind of curate the sense of oneness within your...
Yes, through meditation. So I think it has to happen spontaneously. Whenever I try to get it back, it just doesn't come. It's just leaving the space for that connection to happen. Although you can be intentional about it, but yeah. And another way that I have that, or another moment that I've experienced that is also with the ocean. And you're gonna laugh at this, but usually whenever I go to the beach, I have a very carefully curated playlist that I do before the trip. And for like an hour or two, I just put my headphones and my knees the ocean up to my knees, and I just stand and connect to the ocean, listen to the playlist that I created, and just the sky, the sun, the ocean, the wind, and the music. And I just go into trance for an hour or two, just being one with all of that.
That sounds amazing. Now, would you be able to share one song on the playlist?
Heart of Stone by Cher.
That puts you in a meditative trance of oneness.
Of course, yes. Heart of Stone by Cher puts me just, right there. Yes, I go deep within me with Heart of Stone. I can cry with that song on cue, and it's just anything by Cher, pretty much, except her heavily pop music. But any Cher ballad will take me there, absolutely. The Cranberries definitely would take me there. Some songs by Green Day, like Redundant, for example, or Walking Alone. Fleetwood Mac, definitely. But I think if you listen to it's never happened, but I'm pretty sure you can activate a mythical creature from the ocean just by listening to Stevie Nicks on it. And Chrissy Hynde sometimes, and The Pretenders.
Okay. Now, one kind of last question. I mean, you are a clinical psychologist and you help with meditation classes. A lot of people, I would imagine, would want to kind of reach that place of understanding of the oneness. So how do you deal with somebody that really wants it but maybe like can't get there? I mean, it's not something that can be manufactured, but how do you go about that?
One of the best explanations that I heard about this kind of questions and the process of psychotherapy for meditation or spiritual growth was from Dr. Clarissa Pinkola Estes. And she said that as therapists or as people that you work with other people, you can only give processes, you can't give the structure for them to achieve that. So I try to teach the process and then have them feel the process with content. Like what grounds you, what makes you connected to yourself. Maybe I'll teach an exercise and how is this exercise for you? Did you like it? What changes would you make to it? Then next week, tell me how you did it, how you made it your own. And then I think that naturally will get you there. I rarely speak about those states with my meditation students because I think you predispose them. I always say that meditation is a relationship with yourself, and that's it. And of course, I talk a lot about that kind of relationship with yourself and the practice of meditation. But if I start saying, "Oh, you will be wildly creative, you will connect with the oneness of whatever," then I'm just putting my experience, and well, I don't believe in that. So everyone's experience should come from within, particularly with spirituality and psychotherapy.
Wow, that's really helpful to hear. Next question is, what is a cause or group of people that you want to make life just a little bit better for?
I think everyone that's not on the top of the privilege mountain. The world is just um, so messy. I don't want to choose a group of a particular group. Sorry, I need to plug my phone because it's running out of battery. Give me a second. I wouldn't want to choose a particular group because I think all of them deserve kindness and justice. But I think if I could, it would be for people that are at any moment in their lives where they can't answer or face a challenge in front of them because the challenge is so unfair. Not because they are unable of doing that, but because the challenge and situation is so unfair. I think whatever person fits into that category, I would like to ease their burden. And well, I can choose a group that's not problematic in any way. Teenagers. I would love to make life easier for teenagers. I think they are wildly misunderstood, judged, misguided. I don't think they're taken seriously, and they are one of the reasons why we are so successful as a species. Everything that happens during adolescence is one of the things that really sophisticate our brains and our brain power and our intellect and our emotions. So yes, I think teenagers.
Wow, it's beautiful. I agree. I think that they are so neglected. They're this whole demographic that we just look at children and adults.
There's a demand for them to behave as idealized version of adults. So adults say, when you're this age, you should behave like an adult. And for me, an adult is this. But then rarely adults behave like that. That's my experience as a high school counselor. Whenever the teachers would complain about something from the students, it would be like, are you aware that you're talking about a 16-year-old that is sitting 6-7 hours a day with a lot of different things within them, and you want them to give you full attention, yet we took a training together and you couldn't shut up. You couldn't shut the fuck up during the training, and you were always talking and nagging, and you're 40 or 50. You couldn't regulate your mouth for 45 minutes, but yet you want that from a 16-year-old. Fuck you. So,
that's the fire I like to hear. Oh my gosh. Question number 8 is, what are 2 positive words that you would use to describe yourself?
Myself. One, it wasn't used as a positive word towards me, but I claimed it as positive, which is intense. A lot of people were like, you're too intense for this, and you're so sensitive and intense, and blah 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 blah. Yeah, I'm intense, and I love that. And the other one that I like a lot is, I don't know what's the correct word in English, but just if it's, I would say contradictory, being a contradiction, because I think being contradictions, walking contradictions, it's part of the human condition, but it's freeing. Like, I can be very deep, but why would that stop me from enjoying other aspects of myself? Or you can be very rational and intellectual, but why wouldn't you have space for other things within you, even if they are in opposition, or even if they're contradictory one with the other? So I like whenever someone says, like, I would never expect this from you. Do you like this? Wow. Or when they say, like, yeah, you're a meditation teacher, yeah, you get angry. Well, yes, and I probably will do until the day I die, because it's not anesthesia. It's not being anesthetized. It's just being you. And if part of you is angry, then it's angry, and that's that.
Wow. Tell me about the process of reclaiming a word. I think that was a really profound thing, that you had reclaimed the word intensity for yourself.
It was used as a way of discouraging my feelings, or my tastes, or my interests, or my life choices, or my way of relating, or a lot of different things. And it was just like, you're such an intense person, you're very intense, things would be easier if you weren't this intense, or your intensity is kind of overwhelming. And of course, I needed to grow a lot in that intensity, and needed to understand it and be able to contain it and regulate it, and a bunch of different crap. But taking that out of myself would have been a catastrophe. And I think it's the same thing that allowed me to connect with all of these things that were very helpful for me. And so it was just like, okay, why are they saying this? Because of these things. Do I like these things that they are criticizing by calling me intense? Yes, okay, then okay, this is my word now. And if I'm called intense, yes, I'm passionate and I'm intense. Yes. So what?
Wow. I think that sense of taking it out of you would be a catastrophe. It really resonates with me, I feel.
Yeah, like I wouldn't not. It was a struggle, sure, but I would have. I don't know. I think some things are worth fighting for decades or years, and keeping my intensity mine was one of them.
I think that I find your intensity quite endearing. It's one of the things that I really enjoy most about you.
Except in the first 3 weeks of our friendship.
This is very true. I wonder what my journals say about that. There's this guy.
Yeah, maybe prior to the first meeting at Top Park. I remember that first meeting at Top Park. We came back singing and listening to Cher videos.
That was so fun.
So that was.
Oh my
I think we clicked when we hung out for the first time, but before that, yeah.
Anyway, next question. What is a moment or an event where you thought life had ended, but that life would, the next day, like, it continued?
Okay. I've had 2 near-death experiences. So one of...
Question number 11 is, have you ever thought you're going to die? So for question 9, use
another
near-death 1. Question 11.
Okay, I'll leave those answers for question 11. 9, feeling that, yes, that life would end, but then everything was normal the next day.
Well, in a way, normal. Like, I mean, yeah.
The end of high school. I changed high schools because there's this high school in Monterrey. It has 5 campuses, but it's the same high school. It's just spread all over. Well, it's 5 different, but they belong to the same school. And they do have their differences, but there's 5 of them. So I started one, and I hated it with all my heart. And so it took me a year and a half to get rid of that school. Because the first semester I was like, well, maybe I need to adapt to this. And then the second semester was, the fuck, I need to adapt to this. I'm just leaving. I'm going away. And then they were like, yeah, but you have to start everything and the paperwork at the beginning of the next semester, and you'll be able to go in 2 semesters. So by your 4th semester, you'll be able to transfer, not now. Now that I worked at that high school, I realized that now you can do that instantly, but maybe they had different rules back then anyways. So I changed campus in the 4th semester. So I only had 4th, 5th, and 6th semester here in that particular campus that I wanted to go to, and I loved it. I made a ton of friends. It was a beautiful place. The place in itself is beautiful, and it was just so healing in so many ways for my teenage years and for the previous experience that on the last day of class, I have it tattooed in my mind. The group of people that I used to hang out with, which was big because it was like several subgroups would make this big group. You know how teens and cliques and all of that. So I remember a lot of them, well, a lot of us being together in one of the tables from the hanging place here, there at the campus, and we were just talking, and it was this feeling of, this is the end of this moment, and we're never gonna see each other like this again, and this is never gonna happen. So I better just absorb this. So I had brought my camera that day, and I took pictures of the school. I could, in the empty spaces I would go to the school. And the next thing was like, okay, well, life carries on. But I think that was a sense of life ending in a way that I knew, and then just resuming itself the next day, the same way it was in a way. But yeah.
Yeah, the ending of life experiences and chapters is so like it really leaves like this mark on us early on.
Sorry that I'm laughing, but I had you're absolutely right. I'm not laughing at that. I just had a very pathetic memory of myself of another time when this happened that I thought life would end. This is 100% true. Sorry that I left mid-depth for you, but this TV show called Charmed, about three sister witches. Yeah. It came out when I was 12. I was so obsessed with that show. I would tape every episode in my VHS recorder, and then during summer I would watch my own reruns created by me until the new season would come. And then whenever they were on hiatus or break, I would just feel the breaks with my own. I can quote verbally any episode of Charmed or any spell. If you ask about a demon and spell, I will know it. And when the series ended, the last episode, it was like, why are they taking them away from me? Life is ending. Something that has been with me for 8 years is going away, and I'm never going to see these people again. And it was, God, that was very sad.
I mean, it's on par with a death.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, yes, my Hollywood sisters were dying. So yeah,
you needed time to mourn.
Yes, absolutely. And then they all answered on Twitter, so that made it better.
Whoa! Did you know I've never seen an episode of Charmed ever? I might have to watch one.
You have to, yeah.
Maybe.
Do so. The first one is brilliant.
Okay. Next question. This is that love and suffering are said to be our greatest teachers. Mm-hmm. So what has each taught you?
Oh, okay. I think love has taught me that everything can be redeemed and repaired. Maybe not perfectly, but everything can be redeemed and repaired through love. Maternal, paternal love, sibling love, self-love, altruistic love, love from a stranger. I think love has so many different levels, and we only focus on the stupidity of romantic love by Hollywood, or the idealized, family love, which of course exists, but all families, well, I'm a family therapist too, so all families have crap. But for example, if a stranger is nice to you and they help you, it's a kind of love, a kind of solidarity, a kind of union in that moment. So I think absolutely everything can be redeemed and repaired through love. And pain or suffering, I remember, just thought about a Cher song that I was listening in the morning called Love and Pain. I'll send it to you later on. Suffering taught me that I think suffering is one of the ways we grow in this planet. There's no escaping from it. I think suffering taught me that things can heal too, same as love. That you feel the same, that you feel with the same aspect of yourself. So you can't shut down to suffering because you'll be shut down for everything. So you have to just have a relationship and know how to embrace and handle and manage suffering or pain. Of course, there is unnecessary suffering and pain. Absolutely. I'm not idealizing that. I think some suffering is just unspeakable and nobody should go through that. But that's a whole different story. So yeah, I think suffering taught me that you just need to accept it as much as everything else in life. And that there is a lot of healing in accepting it and growing from it. And just, I think that's how you grow in this planet, through both love and suffering.
Now, you academically are a Jungian, and the term the shadow side of things, how would you bring that into this conversation on accepting the other parts of suffering? Because I feel as if many times people would like to push away different parts, and so how would you bring in the term the shadow side of our lives?
Well, shadow is everything we don't want to admit from ourselves, and the way we learn that is through shame. So people tell you this is not appropriate, this is not good, you shouldn't be like this. And some things are, I think, need to be, and shadow also means the destructive aspects of ourselves. So for example, shadow within us can be the, I don't know, someone is sitting next to you and they're annoying, and you just think like, God, this is the worst person I've ever heard in my life, and they're so awful. But it's just your own pettiness. We're all like that. We don't say it out loud because it would be shameful, and and so we don't do it because, well, good, yay. But then there's other things, like if you're born very intellectual in a creative or in a very artistic scenario that doesn't accept differences, you might be shamed for being like that. And so repression, hiding things, that takes it into the shadow. And whenever something is in shadow, we see it on other people. We project it on other people and we reject it on other people, but it's inside of us. So usually we meet our shadow. Well, we always meet our shadow through projections, particularly projections that either idealize or demonize people. Whenever you're idealizing or demonizing someone, it's always shadow work or something being done by the shadow. And I think that a lot of times we need to go to the shadow, and the way to it a lot of time is suffering. I was rejected because of this. I was shamed because of this. I don't like being this angry or this negative or this vicious against people inside of me, or envy, or having envy or jealousy. And I think it's painful to accept that those aspects of ourselves. But by the suffering of, I think suffering is a great thing in that sense. Just in that sense, whenever we are facing a destructive aspect of our side and we suffer because of it, that means it pains us to be like that. Like, I don't want to be this jealous, and it makes me suffer. So I think suffering is telling you, well, this is painful, and you can change it, and it matters to you. Or if you lose a relationship or a friend and you suffer because of that, well, they mattered. Otherwise, if you would have just said like, oh, fine, life goes on, and let's just, have positive vibes and all that crap, then what? That wasn't important enough for you to suffer about it. So I think suffering in that way, because of course there's a lot of nuances in the conversation about suffering, but in that specific way, I think it can tell you when something was very important to you, and it can also guide us through the inner work that we have to do with our own destructive or neglected or rejected parts.
That's a really helpful description of of the shadow work and suffering. Thank you for that.
Thanks.
Now we get to go back to the previous question of, have you ever thought you're going to die?
2 times. The first one, I was also in South Padre Island. I fell from the banana and I was lost at sea because I didn't want to go to the stupid banana, and I was, I think, 14. And I was pressured by everyone, parents, friends, uncles, whatever. At 14, I was incredibly skinny, very, very, very skinny. You could almost see my bones. I ate like, there were no tomorrow, but I was very, very, very skinny. And I was sitting on the back part of it, and I just fell. But nobody else did, just me. The stupid thing left. And I was just there, alone in the ocean. And I started screaming and crying and going like, I'm gonna die. And then a very calming feeling, came from within. It was just like, okay, if you are going to die, you need to know how. Like, I really need to know what will take me. And so I was like, fine. I was very calm after that. I was like, if this is my last second, I want to embrace that, head on and go like, yeah, you're taking me, but fuck you. So that was very calming. And then I said like, I need to get out of this mess by myself. They're not coming back. So let's just accept that they're not coming back. My biggest fear was to drown because of being exhausted. So I could see the coastline. It was very far. And I just started swimming and swimming. And it was noon, so the sun was very high, and I was afraid of passing out. So I was just swimming and then resting, swimming and then resting. And then at some point they came back. I think like 40 minutes later they came back, and so they just rescued me. Yeah, it's horrible. And then when I got back to the shore, and I told my parents and everyone was really scared. Somebody asked and said like, oh, it's a good thing that you didn't bump into a shark. And in that second, my brain was like, oh, sharks live inside the ocean. That's right. I had completely forgotten that. I'm pretty sure as a survival mechanism. And then the second one, um, it was last year, well, almost a year. August 22 is the first, will be 1 year of that. I was in the apartment that I used to live. I was alone. My wife was traveling on a business trip. And I woke up at 4:20 something a.m. and it smelled like something was burning. And I was so exhausted. And I thought the AC and the motor or something, a neighbor just, barbecuing at that hour. I thought about a billion different things, but not a fire. I was really tired, so I was like, "Oh fuck this," and went back to bed. And then by the third or second minute, like fourth minute, I woke up again, and I was like, "What's going on?" And I opened up the door, and I went into the living room. And it was just full of smoke, and I was like, "What?" And I even thought like, I left the windows open. Probably something is burning outside, and it's coming in. So I just look outside, and I was like, "No." And then I heard screaming in the aisle. And I was like, oh fuck, the building is on fire. So I opened the door and the whole aisle was just, the hallway was covered in smoke. And I was like, okay. So I went and grabbed my phone. That's it.
To text somebody, to Instagram it?
No, because I said when I'm out of this building, I need to tell people that I'm safe. So I grabbed my phone.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
then I ran through the hallway, facing down so that the smoke wouldn't come inside. I should have grabbed a paper or something with water, like a cloth with water. That's usually what helps. But anyways, and I was next to the stairs, and well, no, I walked towards the stairs. I was on the opposite side of the stairs, and then I yelled, "Can I come down?" And they said yes. And I just flew the 5 stories on my socks, and I just went out. And the firefighters were already there. The police was there. Paramedics were there. And then I think like 20 minutes after I left, all of my neighbors had to be rescued because the building was getting so hot that they couldn't come down by themselves. So the firefighters had to go apartment by apartment. Nobody got hurt. And I remember when I was seeing all of the smoke in the hallway. I'm a Game of Thrones fan, and there's this character Arya that she's being trained how to be a fighter, and her first teacher tells her, whenever you think that you're gonna die, just remember, what do you say to the god of death? And you say, not today. So I saw everything, and I said, what do you say to the god of death? Not today. I just flew and got the hell out of that building. And
so that actually came
that
to mind while you were there.
What do you say to the god of death? Not today. And I just ran and went away.
This is amazing.
So yeah, that's those 2 moments I thought I would die. I definitely thought I would die.
What is the feeling of accepting that you're survived, like that you had survived after the fire, for example, looking out and seeing the fire and knowing you were in there and then knowing you're out? What is that kind of like sense of acceptance of I'm alive?
I had acute stress symptoms. Sorry, that's a good sleep. I had acute stress symptoms for like 3 weeks, and
really
not PTSD. Didn't get to that point, but acute stress. And 3 or 4 days afterwards, I was able to go back and fetch some things because we couldn't go inside. It was just closed. And the first days that I went, it was fine. But then one of those days, as I was going through the stairs, I remember I saw the whole stairs all devastated and burnt and black, and just and I started hyperventilating. And then it was just a feeling of that morning when I was out of the building. I was just thinking of the many different things that had to happen for everyone there to be safe, because we could have all died. It started in an empty apartment, and the police saw the fire through the street camera. They called up firefighters. When the police arrived first, and they didn't have a key, of course, and the door was very big to just bring down. But one of the officers was friends with someone that lived there. So when he arrived, he recognized everything and called him, and that person opened. And it was, and so it was just a lot of different things came together so that everyone there would be safe. The 3 families with little children were out on vacation, the 3 of them. So it was just one of those moments where you say one little thing and everything would have been it could have been a tragedy. So I think at first I thought it was borrowed time, that I was just living extra minutes and days and years. And then I saw it more kind of like an opportunity to just reconsider that life could have ended, but it didn't. And I think it was a feeling of accepting that it can end, and there's that, it can end at any moment, and there's nothing I can do about it. So if it comes, and if one day I say not today, but that says yes, today is the day, I'll say fine. Let's go be intense in the other world. Let's carry on.
Jose. Wow. Those are some like unexpected lessons in life that just are thrust upon us that we need to come to terms with.
Yes, and that I think at the beginning it was just I was very angry at the beginning. I had a lot of different things, but it was a protective anger too. So I wasn't taking crap from anyone. I mean, I never do, but at that moment it was just, you know. And then I went into a depressive mode, and just sort of like I felt like my energy is. I remembered being able to do a lot of things, but just not having the physical or mental energy to do them. And I was like, okay, so I need to just keep that in mind. And also that a lot of people, I think one of the lessons was that a lot of people go and jump and save you. The sense of community there was amazing because we didn't know our neighbors, and the people from the building we didn't know the surrounding houses or buildings, but all of them, well, most of them came out, and because after the fire it was at 4 a.m. and we had to stay there until like 4 p.m. before we could move, because a lot of different authorities had to come, and then we had to be interviewed, and the police, and a lot of different government things. And we had to stay there in our pajamas, just not having money or eating or anything. And the neighbors were like, a lot of them brought out chairs. They went to the supermarket and bought us food. A lot of them let us use their bathrooms, their iPhone chargers. Some of them canceled their work days to stay with us, and we had no idea who the hell they were. And it was just so humbling and heartbreaking. It was beautiful. And also, a lot of people reacted in my personal life in a very unexpected way for good. Like they were really supportive. Others don't. But what I learned is that it's very scary to confront anyone's death because it confronts you to yours. So a lot of people just wanted to be like, but you're safe. Everything is fine. Let's just leave it there. And it's like, yeah, no, everything is not fine. And I remember another lesson was the importance of doing deep self-care in that sense. And I remember after the fire was on a Thursday, so the Tuesday next week, I was just like, I can't anymore. And so I told my boss at the high school that I wouldn't go to work that day. And I canceled all my appointments in the afternoon. And I just came back home, rested for a while. A friend came over. We talked for like 3 or 4 hours. That helped a lot. And then he left, and he was going to the movies with his wife. And then I ordered food and just watched the movie, and that was so repairing. I still remember the food, the conversation with my friend, the movie, everything about that day was so repairing.
Sounds wonderful. Wow. Terrifying, but also like when it comes to like the repairing time, so often it's not like we know what to do, but it's so fascinating that all of a sudden that conversation and meal is what was repairing.
Yes, connection and the meal. Yes, and the movie I saw practical magic about witches, of course.
Oh my god. Oh my god.
So yeah. But the connection and the food.
Next question. What are your thoughts on cheating in a relationship, and what is it?
Okay, my thoughts on okay. I'm gonna answer this as a person and also as a couples therapist.
Yes.
I think every couple needs to come to an agreement of what constitutes as cheating. and because a lot of couples have a lot of different definitions for that, and I think that's one of
Do you think that they should talk about it
absolutely.
before, like,
Absolutely.
even if there's no
Just
I
dating.
don't want to ever cheat
By
on you?
dating, like, yeah, like for you, what constitutes as a betrayal? What constitutes an infidelity? Uh, what's a valid behavior and what's not? Yes, I think that those conversations need to happen. Uh, because, well, if you can't have that conversation and you want a serious relationship, and you both actively trying to have a serious relationship, or more than both, because there's people that are in, well, not a couple of three, of course, but in a relationship or three or more polyamorous, and if you're not willing to have that conversation, then you're not going to be able to have you're going to struggle a lot to have a relationship like that. So I think it's something that needs to be defined by the couple. I think everything is valid if it's okay between those two people, and it's not hurting anyone. I think that cheating most of the time is a symptom of something else going on in the couple or the relationship. I think it can be repaired. I've certainly worked with couples that have come back from infidelity, um, and of course it's always hurtful and selfish and destructive. And yes, well, it's not like, oh yeah, it's not that bad. Of course it is, uh, but I think it's something that can be repaired. Something that can. There's this couples therapist, very famous. She's called Esther Perel. She lives in New York, and she has a podcast where she has a couples therapy session taped, and you can listen to the whole session, and it's beautiful. It's wonderful, and she's just so on point every time. She has a TED talk on infidelity, and the ending of that TED talk is fascinating because she says, like, a lot of us will have two or three great relationships in life, and many of them will be with the same person. No, and some of us will have them with the same person, which means that the relationship will end and be reborn countless times. And I think the cheating is just an ending to what was going on, and it needs to change. So yeah, those are my thoughts on cheating.
Now, to have those conversations about infidelity, about betrayal, and defining those within a healthy relationship, let's say that I were to bring those up in the relationship, how would I do that in a way that made it not sound like I was testing out the boundaries to figure out what I could do?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I think that for those kinds of conversations, you need to be as open, honest, and vulnerable as possible.
Yeah.
So something along the lines of, I'm afraid of being cheated on, or I'm afraid of hurting you and not knowing that I'm hurting you. And I think we should talk about what would be hurtful for you. It's not asking for permission. It's just to understand and to let you know that for me, this or this or this would be very hurting, and we can talk about it. And it's going to be difficult, of course, but I don't know, just having different kinds of rules. And I remember a couple that I worked with, they were in an open relationship, and the cheating aspect of that was someone in the couple having a meal with another person. That was the reason for infidelity, because their agreement was that they could have sexual encounters with anyone they wanted, just never socialize with them. And one of
Oh
them
my
did,
gosh.
and that's cheating.
Wow. That's unbelievable. Huh. Fascinating. Okay, just 3 more quick questions. What's a career that you never pursued?
That I never pursued because I don't care about it, or that I never pursued but I liked
that you liked it, but that you just thought, I don't have the time for that.
it? Okay, marine biology.
Not like you didn't want to become like a sewer technician because you didn't want to. No,
Exactly.
all right.
Or just go into debt and have a PhD and just had to just stare at the ocean for 10 hours and not see anything, and then just having to eat raw fish in the middle of an island, which I respect that work a lot because I consume a lot of work by marine biologists. I read a lot about it. I follow a lot of them in Twitter, but I just wasn't cut out for that. So I respect and admire the people that can dedicate themselves to nature and science like that. But I'm too much
Yeah.
of an extrovert to do that. And but I something that I was obsessed with for probably 6 or 7 years. And I don't know if you remember, but one of my essays in the master's degree was about changing perceptions in society's changing perceptions of killer whales. And I talked about orcas. that was paying dues to my marine biology dream that I had to kill.
Yeah. What was the changing perception of
I
orca whales?
talked to a marine biologist, and I was impressed by his work and his dedication. And when he took out the idealization of the field or the work or whatever, I said like, yeah, well, no, I wouldn't be able to do that. And so there's that.
Wow. When you hear the siren of an ambulance, what is the first thought that comes to your mind?
God, I was gonna say something awful. I hope it isn't someone that I know.
Oh, that's not awful.
Well, just thinking about me and how that affected me or whatever. The other would be, well, just I do pause when I listen to an ambulance, and I just hope that everything is fine for them and for the people they love.
Yeah.
Oh, and I also think I hope a lot of assholes aren't on the road today, and they will clear out the way for the ambulance.
Yeah. So, good. You're setting like good intentions for the whole traffic system and for the person in the
assholes become.
Yeah, you're manifesting it. You have all these different witches
spells.
Not witches brew. Yeah, spells. Yeah. All right, this is the last question for you. It is who is a person that has always wanted the best for you and someone that has always cared about what you would become?
Definitely my parents, but that's an obvious one. Well, no, it's not obvious. For a lot of people, it isn't the case. But my parents and one of my closest friends. We became friends when I was 12 and she was 24. We're still friends. And her name is Katia. She actually lives in Washington State. And I think she's always wanted the best for me. And when I was very young, she helped me a lot to get there. It was just an adult that I could talk to, and that made the whole difference.
Isn't it wild? Because I mean, yeah, it's interesting. Did she have an intention to be there and change your whole life? But there's like kind of this like unintended kindness and presence.
Yes, and it was a friendship, always a friendship. I think at first it was this kind of friendship where where she was also a mentor, in that sense, or a big sister, an older sister. But the beautiful part of it is it evolved into a friendship that transcended that moment of I'm gonna guide you, or I'm gonna be there for you because you're young and lost, and we became really close friends. I am her son's godfather, but like by the Catholic rites.
You gotta play by the rules sometimes. You just gotta play by the rules.
For her, yes, sure. Well, for her son and being a godfather, yes. I didn't take a lot. I just had to attend one hour class and then go to mass, and that's it.
There you are.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, those are all of my questions for you. The last
that's
question.
Right. Now I need to think one for you, which is always complicated. And I ask questions
You don't need...
all day to everyone.
You don't need to. We can end this whole thing right here.
I do want to ask a question. Okay. It can only be one, right?
You can do a two-part.
Just different topics. Okay, just one. I'm just gonna push a button because you're very kind and sunny and bubbly and wonderful all the time. And so I just want to ask, what really, really annoys the living hell out of you, and makes you become even hateful towards something. And the other one is uh, not what you've learned in these episodes from each person, but how has the experience helped you, or what has the experience overall taught
These interviews.
you? Yeah.
Okay. So I'll answer both because they're both
Good.
really good questions. They're very good questions. Do you know, I think it must have been maybe like 2 months ago I was driving and I was thinking to myself how I don't get angry. Like I don't get I shouted one time at one flatmate in college because during Christmas break I came back and my car, he just lent out my car to his friends and it was like empty on gas and they'd driven to LA and all these different things. And it was just kind of like uncalled for. That was like the first time I'd ever yelled at anybody.
That wasn't uncalled for. That was fucking rude. But well, okay.
Right?
Yes.
I think I might have even said that. Uh, but at the same time, and I thought, oh my goodness, like if I don't get angry at people, can I still like fight for something? Like what is kind of like this driving force? Um, and I do look at people that have been oppressed and marginalized, and that like really breaks my heart. But then at the same time, like where is that irrational anger? But I know I identified it on that drive. It's this is gonna reveal my political persuasion, but it's having conversations with people who are diehard Donald Trump supporters that think that he's the savior, like not even like a good policy person, but like an actual like good person, good savior, all of these different things. And I recalled that time. My poor mother has dealt with so much with me. I once read her like the excerpt of the Access Hollywood tape, and my mom's like, "What?" I'm like really kind, really conservative, and I mean she's not a diehard Trump supporter by any means, but she's I'm a little bit more liberal than she is. We'll just put it that way. But I was trying to get her to like hate him as much as I do, right? And so I was like reading off the transcript. I was going to send the transcript to my 93-year-old grandma. I was going to like handwrite it. I then was like, you know what? You've told me not to lie. You've told me not to cheat. You've told me not to steal. And he represents everything that you've told me not to be. And da 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 da. And so like there's this sense of like growing up in this kind of whole community of conservative like religious people that are really diehard Donald Trump fans. And it breaks my mind of like what is morality. And so that probably is the time that I get most like physically I get super tense and I'm like calm down. Like it matters but it doesn't matter. Like me getting like furious about it and my own body tensing up isn't solving any problems or changing anyone's mind, you know? So I would say, but I mean, so he's kind of like this that typifies the like hateful, I don't know, xenophobic, racist, homophobic person, right? But I mean, they exist in most everywhere else, but he's just easier to kind of direct my displeasure toward. I mean, even talking about him now, like I'm just
Yes.
like I feel it makes me feel really like vulnerable that I can't like control myself and be like, Eric, just calm down. Like it's not that big a deal. Just take a deep breath, you know? So with your question, like what that's probably it.
Okay.
I don't know why.
And
Okay. Oh,
the other one,
what was the next one?
how has this transformed you? What have you learned from doing these conversations?
Yeah. Well, all right. Well, first of all, I still feel a bit vulnerable and embarrassed about like saying that I get angry because I don't see myself as an angry person. You take it out on you took out the truth. Um, so I don't know if I told you this, but I was talking to when I wanted to start these podcasts, I was like, oh man, I couldn't sleep one night, and I was just like rolling over and over, and I was like, interviews are my favorite thing in the world. Learning from people, listening to people, validating their stories, validating my stories, validating our own experience, and saying like, this is beautiful, like who you are. And I remember thinking like, I've got to start a podcast. I've got to interview people. I've got to ask these questions. And like all the questions just came to mind. And I thought that they were like objective questions. And I read my therapist off a few of these questions, and she was like, it's so deadpan. She's like, Eric, these are very childish questions. I mean, clearly nobody paid attention to you when you were a child, and nobody answered any of your questions. And I was like, Marie, go easy. So what I found is within the question list, I know where my answers are, but at the same time, I learn things from other people. And so it's this pursuit where I do have my own self-knowledge, but a seeking of further self-knowledge of myself. So when it comes to like love and suffering, I know what I've learned from it, but what you had just shared and kind of the symbiotic relationship of love and suffering, I think I found that so profound and really helpful for me. Even the shadow side, I ask these things because I'm unbelievably curious about it, and I knew that you've studied it and you know it and you're able to articulate it well, that I can receive that. And so I think it also makes me value people and what's the cloud of knowledge and experience and memory. It makes me see that behind people, and really just kind of fall in love with them more, I think. Yeah. And what I've learned about the questions is, for all intents and purposes, they're somewhat universal. I mean, anybody can have a childhood memory, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, most people hear a siren and have a sense, you know? I don't know. It makes me connect more to people and to humanity and to the bigger narrative and the bigger experience that I think that I yearn to know more.
Oh, it's beautiful.
So in a way, it's kind of like a selfish ethnographic quest.
Very entertaining one. And healthy. I don't think it's selfish at all. So yeah, it's cool.
Good. Thank you. That's a great two questions.
Thanks.
I think I spoke quite a bit. All right, Jose, thank you so much for joining all of us today. It was wonderful.
That's great.
Yeah. And thank you everybody for listening and watching another episode of Oh, Go On Then, You're Amongst Friends. Take care. Thank you for listening to another episode of Oh, Go On Then, You're Amongst Friends. All of the podcasts are made possible thanks to the generosity of our online community of supporters, who I see as the friends who listen along. You can visit ogoonthen.com to learn more about the podcast and maybe consider supporting the creation of new episodes. You'll find the link to ogoonthen.com in the show notes below. To all of you who listen and have been so encouraging, thank you, thank you, thank you. Could not do this without you. And I look forward to our next episode together.